morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Tennis Takeaways with Lisa and Duey. I'm Lisa Stone, creator of Parenting Aces, tennis parent, tennis consultant, tennis, I don't know, everything. And my partner in crime, good morning, Duey.
Good morning. I'm Dewey Evans. I am a person involved in the world of tennis here in Austin, Texas. I've been a coach. I now mostly consult with parents and players and people in the tennis industry on all things tennis related. And we are here today talking about kind of where we believe things stand in the tennis world at the moment. Taking a little pause from talking about the racial things involved in tennis and just kind of taking a little pause and saying, okay, everything's opening back up, schools are going back, and where do we believe things are? Where have they gone? Where are they going? And are people taking enough time to look at what the future looks like, or are we still just flying by the seat of our pants all the time? What do you think, Lisa?
I totally feel like we're flying by the seat of our pants, including the two of us, Dewey, as we try to adapt week to week and figure out what we should be talking about, because we have these planning meetings and then things get announced or things show up in the news and we're like, okay, wait, nope, scratch that, let's go a different direction. And it's day by day, right?
It
This
does
week the news
change.
is all around. Yeah, this week it's all around college football and all these announcements coming out around college football. Something, by the way, which I never had any interest in following, and now all of a sudden everything I do is tied to.
Doesn't it?
Are
It
we
all
gonna college
hinges. It all
football?
hinges on what happens with the football season, and it looks like, at least at this moment in time, the announcements that have come out over the past 24 hours and some overnight that I heard this morning, about half of the world is going to be playing big time college football and half isn't. Looks like the West Coast has decided, nope, we're going to err on the side of caution, and East Coast has decided it's no more risky than anything else putting people in dormitories, and to some degree the football is probably less risky, right? It's a more controlled environment.
Right, right. And who knows what's going to happen? All I can tell you is I've been following the school openings in Georgia, which Georgia has, over the last, I don't know how many years, started school at the beginning of August. Even I think last year, the year before, first day of school was like July 30th, which was insane. That used to be the middle of summer.
Yeah, right.
But so schools in Georgia, the ones that are going back to in-person learning, are now open. And of course, if you follow the news at all, you've seen the photos of these crowds of high school kids in the hallways packed together like sardines. Nobody's wearing a mask. We heard principals and other admins coming out and saying, well, we can't enforce mask wearing, which is a load of hooey, because they enforce the length of a girl's skirt and what can be printed on a t-shirt. So we know they can enforce mask wearing. They are just choosing not to do that. And now we're seeing all these positive cases coming out, which of course school just started, so I don't think it's tied directly to the kids being back in school. But the issue is these kids are now exposing all of their classmates and their teachers and everybody else that they come in contact with during the school day. So that's disturbing. And on top of that, we get the announcement that college football is going to be back in play, and we know with college football that entails these big old hulking guys coming together, having physical contact with their sweaty bodies. Yes, they're wearing, protective gear on their faces, but they're not wearing masks. And I don't know. To me, is it as safe or safer than sitting in a classroom?
Yeah,
I think,
and I don't know, and I have to say, because I did play college football at a Division One college, and at that point in time, it probably wouldn't have been real safe. But I know that there has been talk of using some of the face shield type thing. So as you're watching players in the NFL, you'll see them that they have their eyes protected and have for a while, or many of them do, so that the hands aren't going in and poking them in the eye. So they've had these plexiglass type shields, and there's some talk of that being more over the whole helmet. And I'm not sure what all of the safeguards are, but the reality is some places aren't playing college football, and it will affect tennis. And tennis is still one of the safest things that people can be doing. That we're talking about, a space that is 60 feet wide and 120 feet long, and it's safe. Even with 4 people on it, it is one of the safer environments. It's outdoors where wind is carrying particles. It is one of those places where people can get out and get some exercise and do some things. But it's going to be negatively impacted, I suspect. Here's my prediction, is there hasn't been a lot of talk of making tennis a bigger thing. So, tennis on campus being the thing that probably could give kids an outlet on the college campuses. So that hasn't really been a thing. And the funding is going to cause a lot of varsity level programs to go away. I think we've,
and already
that
has.
list. Yeah, and that was with football probably happening, right?
Right. Yeah, it's going to be problematic for college tennis at the varsity level for sure. But interestingly, the ITA, the Intercollegiate Tennis Association, and UTR, Universal Tennis Ratings, have partnered and are going to be offering a series of fall tournaments on campuses. They're open tournaments, and they're prize money tournaments. And the way that they can do that with NCAA regulations around prize money is to make these open tournaments. So they are stepping up to kind of fill a gap this fall, because we have heard that fall competition in tennis is not happening on the campuses. But UTR and ITA have stepped up, and I am going to be interviewing the head of the ITA and the head of UTR in a couple hours, as soon as we're done with this. Well, it's at 10 a.m. Pacific today on our Facebook channel, and that will be available on our YouTube channel later for on-demand watching. But these organizations are stepping in and filling the gap. Interestingly, also, tomorrow I am interviewing the manager of the Lake Nona campus at USTA, and one of the things that I wanted to discuss with him is tennis on campus going to kind of step in to fill this void for college tennis? And right now, USTA doesn't have anyone charged with running tennis on campus. And it seems like a real missed opportunity by our governing body. I know you have some thoughts on this, Duey.
Well, yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on it, and I believe that it's because tennis is run by a bunch of bureaucrats. There aren't very many visionaries involved in the sport. Somebody should have been thinking about this way back in February when it was first known that this virus was coming and people were starting to talk about shutdowns and schools were shutting down everywhere. Somebody needed to have their sights set on now, on January, on a year from now. Right then, there should be a roadmap in place of people having thought through the potential scenarios, having plans, having backup plans, having contingencies to backups, and that doesn't seem to exist. What there is, oh, here's where we are right now. What should we do? What should we do? What should we do? Instead of, here's where we are right now. Okay, that means we go to this phase. And so there's a bunch of if-thens that exist all along the way, and if this happens, then we go to here. And have it be very clear, very thought out, have the messaging be clear enough that people know and have confidence that this has been thought out, that we know. I think that's the case across the board, and everybody's taking the lead from the top of, there is no national strategy to deal with any of this. There's not a tennis-wide strategy to deal with any of this. We're seeing it with the competitions which are going on, and players deciding that they're going to play the U.S. Open or not play the U.S. Open, and some of it is based on if they're going to be able to be let into Europe afterwards and if they're going to have to quarantine, and nobody thought about any of this, or if they did, they didn't do a very good job with it. And Thanksgiving's coming up pretty soon, right? So everybody sharpen their axes and putting turkeys' heads, and I think we take some of these tennis people and put their heads there and just, lop their heads off and say, go away. Go away.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the USTA has been so focused on the US Open, right? That's because it's their cash cow. The USTA needs the US Open to happen in order for anything else to happen around tennis that is any way connected to
Or
USTA,
at least
right?
they
All of
think
its
they do.
funding.
At least they think they do,
Well,
right?
funding wise, I'm
Yeah, but
talking about.
so what happens if it goes away? Does the USTA goes away? Or is there something that happens as things evolve and things go away? Or does the USTA become a business that was disrupted? So Xerox, who decided that they couldn't do anything except for make copiers, and copiers weren't a thing anymore, and so therefore they basically go away. Or Kodak, who only going to make film, or are you going to be the disruptor that disrupts yourself, right? Isn't that's the key, is figuring out where the disruption might happen and you be your own disruption.
Right. And we know that our governing body has never been good at that. That's never been their strong suit, and that's why we're seeing UTR step in and create this, formula for hosting junior tournaments, for hosting money tournaments, for the, entry level pros coming out, for college kids who are looking for a way to fund their tennis since college tennis may or may not be happening this year. I mean, we're seeing that happen with other organizations. We're just not seeing it within USTA.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
No, I was going to say, having been involved with the USTA since, well, as a kid, but as involved in their structure since the early '90s, I would say that the USTA is very good at disrupting themselves. They bring in a new president every 2 years, and they change the initiative. And it used to be how many years until they changed the logo, and then they changed the whole pathway of programs, and how that. What they don't do is to have any level of consistency and a long-term plan that they stick with to make it work. But
Well, so
I
let's
go
get
ahead.
back to this kind of conversation around college tennis and what does all this mean with football only being played in half the country. What does that mean for college tennis around the country? Because are these college football teams only going to be funding their own non-revenue sports, or is the money going to be divvied up across the whole U.S.? Have you heard anything about that?
Well,
I
I
mean,
think that because there hasn't been any talk as to what happens with the BCS series, right? So the championship series at
yeah.
the end of the year, and that's where a lot of the cross
Other
pollination.
than
Uh,
other than we're hearing, just put the SEC and the ACC against each other because that's who's going to be there anyway.
well, I'll just leave that alone. I don't have a horse in that race, so I have friends who
Me
played at
either.
UCLA and USC, and ones that
Go
played at
Bruins. That's all I'm going to
Georgia,
say. Go Bruins.
um, so I don't know because it doesn't. We don't know where that money is going to go, and it's going to be a limited pool of
Right.
funds no matter what. And there is still some talk of those schools that aren't playing in the fall possibly playing in the spring. And what will that look like? And is there potentially more money? Because everybody has been trying to figure out how do we add more football since forever. If you look at the NFL,
Yeah.
went and this Thursday night games that after Monday night they started adding almost every night of the week to see if they could get more. Well, now there's going to be college football possibly in the spring, and so that's live programming on Saturdays when there isn't a lot of things still in place. So maybe that's more money, right? And those are the kinds of things that people need to be thinking about. Is okay, is it going to work like that, or does it just mean that there's less money, and so tennis needs to operate some other way? It needs to be more self-funding. It needs to be UTR. Is the fact that UTR events are coming on campus through these open events going to make the facilities on college campuses, which are some of the best in the country, more accessible to the local communities which exist around it? And so will tennis grow because these facilities aren't just these locked off private things for these college teams now, but they're a place that are going to bring in fans on weekends and get kids excited and looking at that environment. I think there's
Which
an
is what we've
opportunity.
been we've been talking about this for how long, that college tennis needed to engage in the local communities in order to be important to the university, and in order to avoid getting, its head chopped off when budget issues came up. And the ITA has been preaching that. People like you and I have been preaching that for years. And now all of a sudden, UTR has come into the mix and they've said, okay, we've got a platform. We're going to help you do this. We're going to help you engage your local community. We're going to set up these events. We're going to get these junior players on your campuses, get them excited about being on a college campus, playing against current college players, playing against, past college players, having an opportunity to win a little prize money, make the parents excited because now, maybe we can offset the cost of some of this junior tennis stuff. I mean, this is the stuff we've been talking about for years, and now we're seeing that happen. Sadly, we're seeing it happen in the wake of so many NCAA programs being chopped. And even, I've been following this stuff at Winthrop and the fundraising. The Winthrop program has been trying to save itself by fundraising. They have raised, I think, close to $800,000.
Wow.
And the university is still saying, sorry, we're not going to have tennis this year. And they're giving all these lame excuses that were initially all about funding. And so the players and the alums have banded together. The community has banded together. We're seeing local restaurants step up and say, tonight's all about Winthrop Tennis. Come in. We're donating 25% of our revenue back to the program. I mean, these players and alums and coaches and community members are stepping up and doing the things that the university told them needed to be done, and the university's still saying no. So, I call BS on a lot of these financial arguments, and it's really sad. And I don't know what are we expecting to happen if the college administrators are dead set on cutting these programs. I don't know what else we can do other than support these players and help them find other opportunities to play and compete.
I think there have been administrators who have wanted to cut these programs for a long time, right? And somebody
Right.
just finally put forth the opportunity, not somebody, but a situation, a pandemic, one of the worst things that we've experienced in our lifetime came forth, and it gave them the opportunity to say, this thing that we've wanted to do for a long time, we can do it under the guise of, we just can't make it work anymore. When the reality is, it can be made to work if they want to make it work, that these are vital parts of the community, that Winthrop proving that, Rock Hill, South Carolina, where Winthrop isn't a huge metropolis. It is essentially an outskirts suburb of Charlotte, North Carolina, so just south of the border. And there's not a lot there. It's for that community to come up with the kinds of funds that you're talking about to save tennis says it can be. It is a vital part of the community, and the coach there has been there since before I lived there, and so a long time, and a staple within the community. I don't know what the answer is going to be. I guess maybe fortunate that I get to sit here and talk to you about these things with no strings attached, nobody saying that I should do or I shouldn't do. It is us getting to say, here's what your opportunities are, here's where you're a buffoon for not looking at those opportunities. And so we get to be the pundits that sit out there without having to make the decisions. And I'm sure that it's hard, because I'm sure that there are other things which would have to be cut in order to make the budgets work. And no matter what gets cut, somebody's not going to be happy. And unfortunately, tennis team is very small. That there's only 6 people playing. There's more scholarships than that on the women's side, but there's not even 6 full scholarships on the men's side on a fully funded Division I men's team. And so
Right.
therefore, the number of people affected, and so therefore the number of voices which will be shouting are pretty small. It's an easy knife to dig in.
Except we're seeing that's not the case at Winthrop, right? We're seeing that it is a small number, but they have been mighty And not only have they raised this money, they've negotiated with businesses in the industry to come in and do the work necessary to their facility at a discounted rate. I mean, these players and alums and community members have shouted that tennis is important to us. We want this program to survive. We want it to continue to grow. We want it in our community. And still, the university is saying no. One of the things that I've talked about for a long time is the fact that Stanford University has this endowment, right? That tennis is paid for, for years and years and years. We don't even know how many years. The coaches, the facility, scholarships, equipment, everything is covered through their endowment. And what a great model for other universities to follow. Winthrop is saying, we've raised the money. We've basically got an endowment for the next 3 years, which is where they are right now, and the university's still saying no. So I don't really understand what's going on. Maybe somebody out there watching has more insight and can share that with us through comments, but if a program can be self-sustaining, what is the point in cutting it? It makes no sense to me.
I don't know. Well, what I know is I'd love to see the visionaries. I'd love to see someone who comes forth with a plan which is going to be actionable, and that they're starting to put in place for where all of this should go. And it's what I've not seen. It's the lack of leadership which has existed in the tennis industry of everybody's being reactionary, nobody's being proactive, nobody's saying this is going to be different, it's going to take some period of time. I believe personally 18 to 24 months before we see where this is going to finally land. I know that it's going to look different than what it does right now. What is that different going to be? And who are going to be the leaders in putting the pieces in place now? Because they're the ones that we're all going to follow at that point in time. Those that have their heads stuck in the sand and are fearing all of this change and are paralyzed by that fear are going to be stuck in a place where they're going to have to make some moves, and they're no longer going to be the leaders if they were the leaders now, because they're going to be chasing from behind. That's what I'm looking to see, and I'm happy to have somebody on this show who believes they are that leader, right? I would love to help spread that to the word and to understand it.
Yeah, please reach out to us. We'd love to have you on to talk about your vision for tennis and what you see happening in the wake of the pandemic. And the wake of the pandemic has become the catchphrase, right? We're in the middle of it, and we're going to be in the middle of it for a while. So we got to figure out how to adapt, and this is the time. So Dewey, who knows what next week's going to look like, but for those of you interested in being a guest on this show or coming on and having a discussion with us, you can reach out to me, Lisa, at parentingaces.com, or Dewey Evans at gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. Even if you just like to share your thoughts on what we're discussing, reach out to us. You can also type a comment below this little video on YouTube or wherever you're watching it, and we would love to hear from you. Dewey, another week. We don't know what's coming. We're going to plan for next week. I don't even want to tease next week's show because so much change is happening right now. I feel like we just have to remain fluid and go with the flow.
Things are going to be back to school, more schools going back in at the high school level, the college level, tennis kind of picking back up and continuing to pick back up because it's going, and I'm in a place where kids are out playing tennis right now, and doing it safely, or I believe what is safely. And, we'll be back next week, talk about it some more.
We will. Yeah. All right. Stay healthy. Have a great week, everybody. See you next Wednesday.
Bye.